Hi everybody, I'm Jeremy Ruston and this is the 22nd TiddlyWiki Hangout. I'm joined today by four guests who I'll ask to introduce themselves. Mario, hi, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. My name is Mario Pitsch, and I'm listening here from Austria, near Salzburg. I'm a contributor to TiddlyWiki Classic with plugins and themes, and having a look at the TiddlyWiki 5 source code for a long time, let's say since the beginning, and making some comments at GitHub and this stuff. So yeah, I really like it.
Great to have you here, Mario. Thank you very much. We've got Nathan Kane here who's not got microphone today, so we'll say hi virtually to Nathan. Stephan, hi, how are you? Can you...
Hi.
We've got Stephan's fan in the background as well.
Yeah, do you also hear it? Oh, okay, so I'll try to make it short. Yeah, I'm Stephan Radek. I'm coming from Germany, using TiddlyWiki 5 now mainly for my work. Trying to convince my boss that maybe it's a good idea to use it. Let's see what it is.
Cool. Well, it's good to have you here, Stephan. Thank you very much. And Ton, hi, how are you?
I'm fine. Hi. I'm Ton Gerner from the Netherlands. I'm a long-time TiddlyWiki Classic user and since about 2 months busy with TiddlyWiki 5.
Cool. Well, it's great to have you all here. Unusually, we do have a short, modest list of things that we plan to discuss. So we'll run straight into the first one, which was I just wanted to get your opinions about something, and that's I've just added a fork me on GitHub stripe over on the right of TiddlyWiki 5. So it hasn't yet made it onto 5.tiddlywiki.com, but it is committed to GitHub. And I'm using a CSS only implementation of the GitHub ribbon, so there's no images there. And the way that that's done is it's built into the TW5 wiki, and it's I've done a plugin. Excuse me. There we go. GitHub fork ribbon plugin, which just contains the CSS of the plugin. I mean, the CSS required to do that. And then, in order to implement it, you create a tiddler tags page template, which is also new in the new release and allows us to add new elements to the page template. And here it's just a couple of divs wrapping a link to the repo. And you get this weird thing when you display it twice, but anyway, if you don't display it, that doesn't happen. So I was just curious what you thought. I'm keen to kind of, well, I want to get rid of these links here and hello there, and kind of put them in more sensible and eye-catching places where they're appropriate. But anyway, having added that, I wasn't at all sure whether it's how appropriate it is, because of course, although I want JavaScript developers to be interested in TiddlyWiki 5, we might still anticipate that most TiddlyWiki 5 users wouldn't know what GitHub was. So, what do you think? Perhaps I should leave it on so that you can see it.
I couldn't see it.
Ah.
I saw it when you switched from screen sharing, but
can you see
just
it now?
for a short moment.
Is it visible now?
At the moment, I have a black screen.
Yeah.
So now I see something, but yeah, I just see it when you switch. It should be in the upper right corner, right?
Yeah, that's
so
right.
If you don't make your browser full screen, maybe we can see it, or at least I can see it.
If we don't make it full screen.
Yes, yeah. If you don't make it full screen, I see a small red corner.
Okay, how weird. So, I mean, I can make the browser window smaller.
Yes. So now I see something with GitHub, and if you move it further down a bit.
How weird.
Yeah, so now I see the full browser and see fork something on GitHub.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a kind of philosophical question, really. Should fork me on GitHub be such a prominent feature of the front page?
Yeah, I'm a developer, so I've seen this on many pages. So for me, it's no problem, but maybe a little bit for let's say standard users, so they don't know what to do with it.
So
because sometimes you have it on development related pages, but let's say the user front page doesn't have links like this. So I don't know. There should be 5TiddlyWiki.com and 5dev or something like this. I don't know.
Well, actually, we could do this where we just have the no, that doesn't work. I was wondering if we could just put the stripe on the tiddler about dev. In terms of running two wikis, I think we do need to run a separate dev wiki. I hated it when with TiddlyWiki Classic there was a period when I was maintaining tiddlywiki.com/dev as well as tiddlywiki.com, and I found it a nightmare because I was already struggling to update the main site. But obviously here it would be much easier with TiddlyWiki 5 to split them up.
Yeah, I think the most basic information should be in the user, and then there should be a link for some, I don't know, additional information or advanced information like the configuration tiddler that Tobias did with TiddlySpace, or customization, the customization space, which has all the let's say a lot of examples how to customize the stuff, because when the information is more and more, I think it is complicated for new users to get the idea what is really important for the beginning, and it may be confusing if there is too much information.
Well, maybe this is the time that we should split them off. Actually, split the two wikis off.
I think the main TiddlyWiki should have some information about tiddler transclusion, the syntax, for sure, the syntax stuff, and then I think some examples how transclusions work, how tab work, maybe slices, what is it, sliders, if there are sliders.
But yeah, no, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of material like this stuff. Again, I don't know if you can see my screen, but the stuff.
Encryption. I think encryption should be on the user page.
Yeah, but not this information. This is literally how encryption's implemented.
Yeah, how you can set it up so that create the password, delete the password, and this stuff. Let's say the most basic stuff. And then there should be some very prominent tiddler which says, okay, if you want more information, click, and then you may have this fork me on GitHub banner maybe. So if you have advanced settings or this stuff, then you get the banner too, maybe.
Well, I think I'm sold. I don't think that fork me on GitHub belongs on the front page. So I will. I'll have a look at splitting it out into a separate dev wiki. I think it probably is a good time to be doing that.
Yeah.
Nathan says, download me as a file ribbon on the user page, which is absolute genius.
Yeah, genau. Yeah, this would be cool.
That's absolutely genius. Yes. And in fact, it would. I guess it would just duplicate that, wouldn't it? It would duplicate the normal.
Yes, but I think having a look at the discussion group, it is difficult to find this icon. So,
no, it's not difficult to find the icon. It's difficult to understand that you can save it to your local file system then.
Yeah.
I think I asked twice where to download TiddlyWiki 5 on the groups.
Oh Lord, I think that's still a problem. You know that I haven't. That there isn't a decent link to empty.html.
Yeah, there isn't. There's none.
No,
there is one, but you need to find it.
It's here, which is ridiculous. It should be
It should be on the front page.
It should be, yeah, not very far down the front page.
So if it is this banner, then it would be okay. So download me as a local file or as a file. I think this is, instead of fork me on GitHub. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I was just scribbling some notes. Excellent. Excellent. Another thing that I changed, I don't know if it's at all noticeable, is that the blue of the links is now bluer and brighter. So it's now changed on 5 actually, so it's not easy to compare it. But well, I don't know. What can you see a difference on the screen share?
Yeah.
Yes, it's much darker on on the page that I showed you before, which is TiddlyWiki from yesterday.
Yes, that makes sense. Although I'm looking at, oh no, Dave had already he's customized his to something else already. So in fact, Tom, if I go to your page, that should be the old colours, shouldn't it?
Oh, is that true? I don't think so. I changed the...
Oh, you changed it as well. Oh no, this is Alpha 13. Oh, I see. No, you changed it.
You can use my example, Steve TiddlySpot.
Oh yes, that'll do.
It has no links.
Oh, here we go. Yeah.
Ah, there.
So
yeah.
I mean,
sorry,
it's
but you can add links.
I'd be very interested to hear what you think. The reason why I changed it is because I was starting to feel that these old links were getting a bit kind of muddy and not noticeable enough. I'd kept, I think a couple of times I've taken them closer to a sort of rich purple, and probably influenced by the latest update to iOS. I was emboldened to make them blue. But as I say, very much open to feedback. I'm arguably not the person who should be deciding color schemes.
There is one thing which I found a little bit disturbing, is that if you hover that there is a pop-up on the tags. If you have more tags or something like this, and if you hover the pop-up there, then they have a shadow.
Yes, that's very annoying, isn't it? I must fix that.
Yeah.
Pull request gratefully accepted.
Okay, I will have a look at this.
But no, you're quite right, and in fact, I think that I think I'm probably applying that embossed text style in completely the wrong place. It should be being applied much more specifically to links, because I don't think it's on anything else other than.
Yeah, I think that the TiddlyWiki default theme should have as few as possible tweaks. So there should be, let's say, everything should be default as far as possible, so that theme authors can change it or add stuff to it. But reverting stuff from the basic theme should not be necessary. So just adding stuff.
Yeah, so I think I may have only said this in passing somewhere else, but my plan is to make a new theme called Vanilla that Snow White will depend upon, and then to move into the vanilla theme most of Snow White actually, but precisely not things like shadows, gradients, any of that stuff. So then,
shadows are not in vanilla.
Yes, exactly. So vanilla would be very flat, very plain, minimal styling, and I think that would be more useful, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's good because with some browsers, then if you have the shadows activated, especially for mobile, it needs a lot of CPU power.
Yes, indeed. No, a while ago I turned them off for that reason. I mean, their performance obviously slowly gets a bit better as devices get better. But yes, absolutely.
Yeah, but if you stick to a mobile for 2 years or 3, like me,
Yeah.
they're
Well, I
old
mean,
already.
no,
So.
but I mean, look, when you go down, oh no, they should be off. They should be off at that size. Oh, that styling's oh, that's a big problem. Look,
Mhm.
it's not responsive anymore. What happened? Um, oh, well, there's a bug that I will come back to. um, the other thing I wanted to just show briefly. Oh, well, one of the reasons for showing this is that it is an example of the configurability that I've recently been adding a lot of. So now down here, if you look at the system tags list, we've now got all of those things being extensible. Control panel, edit template, edit toolbar, more sidebar, page controls, page template, sidebar, tiddler info, view template, and view toolbar. So I think this is now most of the obvious things, I believe. But I was curious if there was anything else that you guys thought could or should be driven in the same way.
At the moment, I think it is okay. And as I posted at the GitHub issues,
Yeah.
I think there may be some trouble with edit mode and repainting all the stuff and having a lot of searches through all the tiddlers.
Yes, no, I just
because
saw your post
what I found out is that the first tab switch takes longer than the others. So maybe there is already some caching which speeds things up. And the first one is really slow. Also, especially in the mobile, there you have 6 seconds or something like this for switching tabs. It is a little bit heavy. But if you go to the left, and then you type something, so it makes an update for every keystroke.
Yes. So it
does it.
I'm sure you recall how this what's supposed to be happening. So every time I press a key, it should be updating the draft tiddler, which should trigger a refresh cycle. But nothing that is currently on the screen should be changed as a result of that refresh cycle. So I think it's a bug. And quite an interesting bug as well. I mean, I don't know how much you can see through here, but as each character, I'm getting a red rectangle that's smaller than the text area. I don't know if that's visible to you.
Yes, we can see this.
And that's weird because I don't believe that there's any elements there with those dimensions. Plus, as you were first noticing, over here, I'm getting a very quick flash, and again, there's nothing over here that needs to be updated.
Yeah, but I think every time internally when you draw the tabs, then you have to search because it's a tag. It searches for the tag list. Then you have to look at every tiddler. So there are many loops now that haven't been there in the old. I don't know, Alpha 10 or something like this.
Yes, so it's evaluating the tab expressions each time through the loop, and that shouldn't be killing it because it shouldn't actually be having to do any DOM updates as a result. I mean, I'm talking here when I'm typing here and it's iterating through those tabs. It does need to calculate those filters in order to see if anything in the list has changed, but because it hasn't, it shouldn't make any DOM updates. So it's interesting. It's making me. I do find the dev tools kind of what's the word? They whet your appetite for for better analysis tools.
I think
I need to build in some better analysis tools.
I think it should not be also optimization should be done when you are, let's say, almost finished. Yeah. But this one, typing into the text editor with a I don't know, 2-year-old computer, it's getting slow.
Yeah. No, this is definitely. I don't know if you saw, but I have. Maybe it was. I think it was before the last Hangout actually. But I have added a whole global cache mechanism that speeds up the calculation of filters involving the tag operators. But you see, the trouble is throwing in optimizations. I mean, that optimization was easy because I'd been thinking about it for a while, but not bothered to do it because it didn't seem like a priority. But really, I shouldn't be trying to optimize it until I've got some robust measurements. And at the moment, on the face of it, we've got some extraneous updates going on.
Yeah, so as I said, so the text input should be faster. The tab switching, okay, I can live with this one.
I can't even live with the tab switching.
Yeah, but yeah.
I think I mentioned last time I've got, luckily I've got an iPad 3, which is now quite an elderly machine, and was always pretty slow. They updated the GPU without putting a faster processor in it or something, and so I get appalling performance on that at the moment, which is certainly incentivizing me to to try and fix it. But as I say, some of it is the fact that there is quite a lot going on every key press. That kind of that probably needs to continue. It's a question of A, there being bugs, and B, there being opportunities for optimization.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's cool. That was one of the things I wanted to discuss. So my plan with these performance issues is to add more instrumentation to my code. There's things that the developer tools give you, like being able to see when a garbage collect happens, which we can't do. But I think we can. I think I need to change the code so that it is easier to debug some of these issues. You'll recall there is in the test suite, there are some tests that test the refresh circuitry. And so one of the things I'm thinking of is actually running the entire page template as a test suite, if you see what I mean. And then that way we could see, and because it's that much more complicated, it would be easier for us to tell if there were any extraneous refreshes going on.
Yeah, I was recording an issue because I started to click tabs twice because I thought the click wasn't, I don't know, the browser didn't catch the click. So I started to click them twice, and that was the point where I said, okay, I have to record an issue with GitHub because
no, it's good you have. I mean, it's definitely got to be sorted out. I mean, I'm keeping working on other things whilst fiddling around with that, because otherwise it would be a bit depressing. But yes, it's right at the top of my list. Oh, there was one other minor. Oh, turn this setting off. One other minor thing in. I think it was Stephan's suggestion. I've added TiddlySpot to control panel, but in the following way, by moving encryption from its own tab into the tools tab, which roughly makes sense, I think. But it does. I'm very conscious that encryption is now buried away, but still, maybe it's something that there's only people who want it would look for it. And then on the saving tab, at the moment, I've just hard-coded these fields that we need for uploading to TiddlySpot. But my plan is to automatically generate that from the list of loaded saver modules. So here you can see there's like 7 of them, and so they should be appearing here in some kind of list with a little status icon or a status color or something telling you whether they're ready to save.
But I think saving depends on the edition, right?
Yes. So there's if you were, I mean, it's if you're running the server version, on the face of it, you wouldn't want any of these saving options. But of course, oddly, there are occasions when it is incredibly useful. I mean, you know, in TiddlySpace, how handy it is to be able to save a wiki snapshot.
Yeah, right.
So it's, and you know, you think about TiddlySpot, maybe it would be handy to be able to save a wiki snapshot to TiddlySpot. So I'm not sure. But yes, conscious that we've got this opportunity with the control panel to keep everything reasonably organized and encapsulated. I did consider making TiddlySpot be its own tab, which really implied also making TiddlySpot be its own plugin. But it feels to me that TiddlySpot is simple enough that it ought to be in the core. And what I'm hoping to do is to make it, I don't know if you...
who owns TiddlySpot?
Daniel and Simon Baird in Australia.
Okay. Are they still active or maintaining?
Oh yes, they are.
Okay.
And they recently posted an update showing people how to use TiddlyWiki 5 with it. The thing that's nice about it, though, is that it's nearest, damn it, a generic HTTP post saver. So it's this upload plugin. So in fact, it's compatible with Bidix's upload plugin, which happens to work with TiddlySpace. But it's really just a generic package things up and post them. And so if you were a PHP developer or any kind of developer, actually any kind of server-side developer, this might well be the simplest way to kickstart a new server-side development effort.
Yeah, so I also think if someone has his own server, let's say the shared servers or something like this, then PHP is always there. So it should be easy to get let's say online saving mechanism up and running. So if you have Node.js or something like this, then it will be a little bit more difficult.
Yes, exactly. So for all of those reasons, I think I'd like to keep the upload plugin in the core. I mean, it's tricky because you could make almost the same logic for wanting the Dropbox save code to be in the core as well. There's another thing sitting there which I just did, which is the Microsoft Internet Explorer saver module. Do any of you guys have to use IE? Happily not. I'll take that as a resounding no.
A colleague of mine wants to use, or a former colleague wants to use Internet Explorer, and he's always complaining that TiddlyWiki 5 is not showing up there.
Ah, great.
I told him to join the groups and post it there, but obviously he didn't.
Well, I mean, I do really hope that we can work well with IE 10 and above.
Is he using 9 or 10 or?
Yes, I don't know.
Or 8.
I have absolutely no idea because he's working at Vodafone. I don't have my Vodafone laptop anymore, so I can't look it up.
Okay.
By the way, I noticed that we've been joined by Dave. Good to see you, Dave. How are you? Dave's microphone less, I believe, but good to see you, Dave. So there was another topic there was a topic that had been raised by, I guess I should say, Julio in which was to ask about the difference between macros and widgets, and can't we have just one or the other and not have the confusion of both? Which seems like quite a good and interesting question. I was curious. It sounds a bit crazy, but I was curious if whether anybody else could answer that question. I mean, Mario, for instance, could you give a concise answer to why macros and widgets are both necessary?
I think macros. There will be a lot of user-based macros, but because widgets is what's in the core. Widgets is like macros from TiddlyWiki Classic. So yeah, that they replaced macros in TiddlyWiki 5, and macros is something that will come out when the user has more content. Because writing widgets maybe, I don't know, up to 10 lines or something like this, and maybe I want to call it as a macro only within one line. So I have to abstract some let's say the complicated stuff from a widget away from the, let's say, end user. And I think there will be some core macros, maybe the list macro or something like this, that looks very similar to what we had in TiddlyWiki Classic. But mainly macros will be user specific, and maybe in groups will use their own macros. And yeah, it's like, I don't know, like domain specific macro language, which comes up for different use cases.
Yeah.
So if I'm if I use TiddlyWiki 5 with mathematics, maybe I have a different set of macros than someone which just uses them to replace some plain text or something like this.
Yeah.
So the vanilla TiddlyWiki 5 should have widgets and a good explanation how to create macros, but then the users will come up with macros. I think that's the way it will happen.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Did that make sense to everybody else as well?
Yes, and for me, macros always seem like kind of template, because what you write there is some HTML or wiki text stuff, which where you put some placeholders, which you can fill. That's it. There's nothing more to macros, at least not now.
No, I think you've touched on an important characteristic, which is the way that macros let you jam together wiki text that gets parsed as wiki text. Whereas if you try and do that with transclusions, it doesn't work, because each transclusion is a separate thing in the hierarchy.
You know, I think the issue Julio raised is also important, because macros are maybe user specific or user group specific. There should be a simple way to manage this stuff, because otherwise you will have a lot of confusion. Because there will be some macros in the core, and then maybe the mathematic groups designs their own macros. But what if I export a tiddler from the mathematic groups to let's say a vanilla TiddlyWiki? Then I'm missing some macros.
Yeah, and we quite a long time ago we did do some discussion of this. One of the ideas I had was to extend the MIME type of tiddlers in a way that is actually perfectly legal, which is where you add an extra bit onto the end that in our case would indicate the vocabulary. So you'd say something like vocab equals TW math. So I don't know if you can see that. Saying set the MIME type of a tiddler to the TiddlyWiki 5 MIME type plus vocab equals, and then the name of a vocabulary. And then there would, the implication is there's a tiddler type vocabulary that somehow pulls together things like parse rules and macros to describe a complete vocabulary.
Oh, this would be cool. So if the TiddlyWiki core knows that TiddlyWiki Math is, I don't know, somewhere at GitHub, and it can download the global macros there, it will work. If you have online connection, then it should work, right?
That would be the idea. So in fact, you could also say text bnd. Oops, I've done it. It's supposed to be a full stop there. TiddlyWiki vocab equals you can do that where you specify a URL to identify the vocabulary. Oh goodness! Thank you for blocking Joseph Smith. But I'm not keen to. Well, I mean, I don't feel much compulsion to implement this vocabulary handling right now. But it's probably good to record the proposal. Partly because you see the distribution problem. If you want to distribute your stuff in a way that's guaranteed to be consumable in somebody else's TiddlyWiki, the way to do it would be to package it into a plugin. So this is not saying that this problem doesn't exist, but that in order for it to be a problem, the person whose content you're using needs to have not been designed for redistribution. Does that make sense? So you've got kind of two importing problems: importing content that's been purposefully designed to make it easy to transport, and importing content that's been written in a way that makes that hard. And I think that's going to be, there are non-technical issues around that as well. I mean, you can structure your content in the sense of breaking it up into tiddlers in a way that also makes it hard to reuse. So it's a kind of making tiddlers reusable strikes me as being a problem with several elements.
Yeah, but I think that the new macro and widget mechanism makes it a little bit more, let's say, complicated, because with TiddlyWiki Classic we only had macros, and most of the time macros were plugins.
Well,
but now macro is something like a text template, and it is because I think widgets are a little bit more complicated to use than macros. So that's why I would create macro, or let's say I would create a lot of macros to make widget handling simpler. So I
think as a goal, actually, I would like people who aren't customizing TiddlyWiki ought to be able to use TiddlyWiki 5 without knowing that widgets exist. So I think that my goal would be to have such complete coverage in the core macros that we cover all the common cases, and that we'll do some of them in the core macros and some of them in the plugins for specific additions. So some of the task management ones, for instance. But
there is always, for, let's say, I did the list widget or the list macro as a test, and I said, okay, the list widget has a lot of possibilities, but for the list macro, I only need part of it. So that's why my interface to the list macro is much simpler than the interface of the list widget.
And I think that's a general capability that we can use. I mean, I was experimenting with it, obviously, with the tabs macro. I was just going to point out, if we look at the list of widgets that are in TiddlyWiki 5 now, in fact, only a very few of them are actually going to be needed by users who aren't customizing it. I mean, maybe button, checkbox, count, probably edit text.
Link, list.
Macro call in a way, that's already packaged up in a way that you don't need to know widget syntax. But maybe reveal, transclude, view. Now, obviously, elements of set variable and tiddler widgets would appear in a number of macros. But now that we've only got, there's nine widgets here that are currently candidates for making available to end users via macros that wrap the functionality more simply. And I think there's probably a handful more that should be there.
Yeah, I think then if the let's say the end user wants to make some customizations, then you can point them to the widget documentation. So they see, okay, macros make things easy to use and fast to use, but the widgets behind the macros are very, very powerful, especially the list widget.
And I think one of the things that I would expect to happen, hope to happen, is that when you look at a macro definition, like for instance the tabs macro here, which is admittedly very hard to read, but I still think there's elements of macros such as this that an end user who was at the point of being able to use macros but wasn't, hadn't learned the widget syntax, I think they can still make a number of useful edits. In many of the macros that we use have a good deal of static text in them. So I'm hoping that gives us this nice gradation where you start by writing wiki text and links and so on, gradually add macros, discover macros, I guess, use them both to access UI features and to create your own domain-specific language to simplify typing your own tiddlers. So I don't know, Julio hopefully will watch this later. But Mario, sorry, you were going to say something.
No, go on.
I was going to say, well, hopefully that helps to answer some of Julio's questions. So to summarize the answer, it's both macros and widgets are here to stay in TiddlyWiki 5. We recognize that widgets add a level of complexity to TiddlyWiki 5. We believe that complexity, or I believe that complexity, only needs to be exposed to people who are doing customization of TiddlyWiki 5, which would be many of the people on this call, and that end users ought to be able to have a positive experience using TiddlyWiki 5, only encountering the built-in macros and any macros they go on to define themselves.
And I think, as you pointed out with this vocabulary thing, it would be possible to have an automated mechanism that could, let's say, get user-specific macros, and maybe in the future there will be a mechanism, which makes exporting, importing a lot easier.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing I really should raise a sort of future ticket for, actually, just so that we don't.
Yeah, because I think this would make handling macros really, really easy. So you just drag and drop the tiddler, and then the new TiddlyWiki says, okay, there is some global macros that are used. Do you want to import it? It's from this and this source, and do you trust it? If yes, import. Done. So this would be really nice.
I was been thinking about making macros self-commenting as well, so that you can write at the top of a macro a description.
Is there some performance problem? Or does it need more performance to pass the stuff? If there is
it means that when we parse the macro definition, we'd store this stuff separately to the body, and then it's really a question of how we would retrieve it. I guess there would be a widget called macro docs that could extract the documentation for a particular macro.
I was just thinking if rendering slows down, if it has to throw the comments away. So
it would be parse time that it would extract the comments.
So is there some compiling step involved, or is it
Yes, I mean, generally things only get parsed once.
Okay.
A static tiddler will get parsed and the parse tree gets cached. So
okay.
It should be okay.
Okay.
And certainly, I mean, obviously we've got an easy way to add documentation to widgets or to plugins, because people can just add documentation tiddlers to be included in the plugin. But it would be, I think, very useful to have that kind of stuff too.
Okay.
A topic that is much on my mind at the moment is moving to the beta, which I think I added to the agenda as well. So I think now we're really, really close. I think basically I've just got to do the upgrade mechanism. But I think we're completely ready to move to beta now. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. If the core upgrade will work easy, then I think we're ready for beta.
So I've been thinking a lot about how to do the upgrade, and still sort of musing about a couple of different techniques, which the first and most obvious one is to update the importing mechanism so that it does import system tiddlers, but with some option set somewhere. Any kind of plugin, it would check for an upgrade by looking at the right place in the plugin repo as part of the upgrade. So that would be one approach, and doing that will require me to implement the something I've talked about before, making it so that when you import a group of tiddlers, what actually appears in the TiddlyWiki would be a single tiddler that lists each of those payload tiddlers with a checkbox that allows you to select whether or not to import it, and with a way to see the difference between the imported tiddler and any existing tiddler with that value. So does that make sense, what I've just described? It would be like a tiddler containing the Gmail view, and the implementation would be that the tiddler you're looking at is a kind of bundle, like a plugin, and the action of saying yes, import these things would be to pull all the tiddlers out of it, save them into the store, and then delete the tiddler that they came in. And with that mechanism, we could do search and replace, and we could make import nicer. It's not entirely related to the additional step of having to do plugin upgrades, but that's there. But recently I've been thinking about a completely different approach, which is to instead upgrade the boot mechanism so that it can load external tiddlers as part of the startup mechanism. So to be clear, for those of you who are familiar with the operation of the boot kernel, it would be a little bit like the way that when you use the encrypted version of TiddlyWiki 5, there's an asynchronous step in the boot process when it waits for the password to be typed before it can unpack all the tiddlers. So we would add another asynchronous step that would use XML HTTP request to load another TiddlyWiki HTML file, and then to load the tiddlers from that file in preference to the file that the boot kernel was originally executed in. Does that make sense?
So you basically, for upgrading, you do import all the content tiddlers and not upgrade the core. So you open a new
well, the distinction is that what one is hung off of the import mechanism. The other would be hung off a new mechanism for loading external tiddlers at startup, and that would particularly have the ability to block the boot process while those external tiddlers were being loaded. And the reason why that's important is because then we can load plugins from those external tiddlers. So it would make the boot kernel quite a bit more complicated, but it would, I think, be quite helpful for, there's plenty of evidence that people are interested in flexible options for handling external separate files, and it would give us a flexible mechanism for doing lots of things with external files.
Is there some security restrictions from the browser vendors in handling external files?
Well, that's one of many frustrating constraints. There's three ways that I think it would be nice if people could do, three ways to do upgrades. One is via NPM. So you'd do an NPM upgrade of TiddlyWiki, and then you'd type on the command line TiddlyWiki /upgrade, and then a pointer to an HTML file, and it would just do the right thing. So that's easy, in fact. and I think quite important for being able to do bulk upgrades of lots of files, and it'll need options for saving backups. Then the second thing is it would be cool if people could visit 5.tiddlywiki.com/upgrade, get a more or less blank screen with one of those invitations to drag a file there, and then when you drag a TiddlyWiki HTML file, it would then prompt you to download an upgraded version of that file. And
I think there will be a problem because you have to send your content to a server.
No, well, that's what I was just going to say, is that we can do all that without sending content to the server, of course.
Okay, but then you have to make this really clear, because I wouldn't use it if I have sensitive data in my TiddlyWiki.
So, well, let me complete the list, and then the third thing.
Okay.
Is that people need to be able to download that mechanism so that they can do it themselves on their own computer with their network connection turned off. So,
okay.
And the reasons for doing that would be both the privacy reasons that you mentioned, but also I think it's quite handy to be able, if you had a bunch of TiddlyWikis to upgrade, you should be able to do it on the train. So to do that, to do all of that is a real pain, because that implies that the upgrade process needs to work both in the HTTP case, which is quite easy, but also in the file URI case, which is quite hard. And so and of course the other thing is that TiddlyFox itself, I think it would be cool if it could do an upgrade automatically. So you think about how TiddlyFox works when you load a page that's an old TiddlyWiki. It might be quite nice if it offered you to upgrade, for instance.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So I'll continue to fiddle my way through this, but you can see roughly what I'm trying to aim for there. Oh, and Nathan is just saying in the corner there about using npm to drive the upgrade and start process. And yes, that remains, Nathan, the goal. I would like to get rid of the batch files and entirely drive everything through npm. Cool. So still talking about making TiddlyWiki 5 into a beta. One of the other thing that I want to do is to move it so that TiddlyWiki 5 moves to tiddlywiki.com and TiddlyWiki Classic moves to classic.tiddlywiki.com. So that implies, so visitors would therefore arrive here and they would have to follow some kind of link to Classic. And I think that needs to be fairly prominent, as they say, maybe above the fold. So I was thinking about something like a floated right box here.
And if you have the, let's say, fork me on GitHub says download TiddlyWiki 5 to the file, and a heading for TiddlyWiki Classic. So a second banner.
Well, yes, I think the TiddlyWiki Classic would be, there'd be a little screenshot thumbnail here, alongside a paragraph of text that's basically this paragraph saying, this is TiddlyWiki 5, almost ready for prime time. The previous TiddlyWiki Classic is still available. It's great. And there's
but I think if it is only in one tiddler, I go to a new page and say TiddlyWiki 5. Hey, Matt, this is cool. I want to read a little bit more, and then I close the tiddler and close. So I don't know anymore which one is the one that where I get the link. So I think it should be really as prominent as fork me on GitHub. There should be link to TiddlyWiki Classic.
Really? So you think it shouldn't be inside a tiddler? You think it should be in the sidebar somewhere?
At the moment, yes, because there are many users that they are used to they are used to see TiddlyWiki Classic if they go to tiddlywiki.com. So maybe in the future you can hide the link a little bit, but at the very beginning I would really have some very prominent links. Say, okay, this is new, but if you're heading for the old one, there is a special link.
Maybe also very prominently show that it's beta. So someone who wants something mature really sees, I shouldn't take this one.
Go on, and what would be an appropriate way of? Oh, that's the wrong one. What would be an appropriate way of doing that, do you think? I mean, because maybe that's the thing that should be on the banner. Do you think? I mean, my thought, as I say, was to, I can't usually do this, can I? But was to add the thumbnail here. Because to your point, for people who are coming expecting TiddlyWiki Classic, they're going to be expecting to see that. So if there is that, obviously smaller, but in a way that they can click on. Yeah. So if we had the thumbnail and then this, perhaps this is where we should say beta.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Yeah, so download to file on them, I don't know, somewhere beta or something like this.
I mean, the let's see, yeah, because this guy, yeah, this guy recolors really nicely.
Yeah.
What color would a beta banner be?
Green, I think a little bit green to yellow, like this. Not dark.
So what would be the? Oh, it's gone back to red. What wording might we have there then?
Where? Go to TiddlyWiki Classic or?
On the ribbon. No, so here, imagine this thumbnail over here, so that even with my restricted screen, I'd see the thumbnail, and that's got a link on it. And so this is solving the other problem of making sure that people realize before they rush into using TiddlyWiki 5 that it's still a beta. And I really like the idea of announcing the beta number on the banner. I think that's really cool. Because that while we are in beta, that's one of the first things people are going to want. Regular visitors are going to want to know when they revisit the site. Is, has Jeremy updated, or have we updated?
Yeah, okay. If it's on hello there, and I say F5, so reload the screen, and then I get the link back to TiddlyWiki Classic, I would be fine with this. Yeah. Even if I can't remember which tiddler contains the link. So.
Well, I'm going to try to. I'll try and make these changes soon, so that we can, have a look and see what it feels like. Oh, I've just seen some comments in the. Oh dear, did something unpleasant happen? I missed that. That's lucky. Site title equals TiddlyWiki 5 beta 1. Yeah, I probably wouldn't put beta 1 in the title. Because it does run into problems if it gets longer, and it's quite useful having a nice short title on there. Hello?
Yeah, I've got a comment. You were just mentioning about visitors coming to 5tiddlywiki.com and wanting to see if you've updated. One thing that's potentially confusing is that the tiddler where the release notes are, the subtitle says Jeremy updated, like 10 days ago, and obviously it's got updates from like yesterday. And so that might be confusing to people who don't know the difference. I don't know if there's something that can be done about that.
Yeah, I think we could touch the release history tiddler and update its date as part of my update procedure. You're right, and in fact, what might help is alternatively if there was a separate date alongside the release, actually, because it also would be quite useful now that the release history is building up. It might be quite useful to know how old these previous versions were.
Mm.
There's actually far too much to be automatically open, I think, as well, really, here now, isn't there? It's quite a long tiddler. Dave, any other thoughts, or indeed anybody, any other thoughts on this? So we've got this as the proposal, barring the modification to put this over here, and reword this paragraph. Okay, and Stephan's suggesting putting beta 1 in the title. So let's copy that and try it out. I think the what I like about the ribbon is it solves two problems potentially. It gives us a prominent place for the version number, but it also flags that it's a scary beta and not yet a full release.
I think it should be really there. Download beta 1, so that you have the download thing.
Agree.
Say again.
So that I would really like to have the download beta 1, so that you have an indication if you click the banner, then you really get to download the file version of this TiddlyWiki.
Yes, I agree.
That's also good.
So I might need to rewrite the version macro to take out the 500 part, mightn't we? But that looks cool, I agree.
Yeah.
But does it though? I mean, it's saying download there though, is that right? Don't know. I mean, let's imagine. I mean, because don't forget, I'm also suggesting that we. But that looks a bit. I'm also suggesting that we have a download link here, so somewhere more prominently than we have at the moment, a big green button saying download. But just saying beta 1, that doesn't seem entirely sufficient. And if we do something like that, put the actual version number there, that doesn't really make the word beta very prominent, does it?
Yeah, I think it would be okay. So you can read it. So.
Well, you think it was okay as that? As that?
Would be okay. You can see that it's beta.
Yeah. Okay. Well, as I say, we don't need to get it right first time. I'll put those in, and just make a bit more of a note. Hang on. I think to Dave's point, lots of people have also had troubles with that as well. So probably ought to update, ought to make sure to update most of these hello there features and release history, I think. Stephan pointing at me taking a piece of paper, yes. Well, I'm sure I've said on the group before that TiddlyWiki is necessary to me because I am a bit disorganized. My instincts are all about finely developed procrastination abilities. And I used to joke at one of my old jobs that I'm just not very good at handling lists. I like doing the things that I've got on my plate in front of me, but I don't really like managing long lists of things, which is probably why this list of things hasn't been updated for a while. Gosh, and sadly, I don't think any of these none of those are done and need ticking off, so that's a bit of a shame.
Yeah, I think they are better, huh?
Say again?
This is the better stuff that has to be done in beta, so there needs to be some work left for the beta phase.
That's one cheerful way of looking at it. And Dave, I've just seen offering to share us an adaptation of TiddlyWiki 5 he's done for a friend. Which, yes, Dave, that would be terrific. Please do.